Welcome to Courtney on Health, brought to you by MalcolmPresents.com. And of course, we have Courtney, we have me, we have Maxine, Margot Rubin, and we also have, introduce our guest.
Marissa Long, we have with us today. I'm very excited. I will do her fabulous bio once we get into the mix, but she's a yoga instructor and we'll talk about that and all the wonderful things she has to share. But I'll let Maxine kick it off with her usual very inspiring intro.
I don't know, inspiring, but in any event, so I will say hello to you guys again. And so hi Courtney, hi Malcolm, hi Marissa. Welcome to Courtney on Health, which is a Zoomcast series about how to get through these lingering COVID times, because we're heading towards the end, thank goodness, with tips on nutrition and exercise given by Courtney Gravenese, registered dietitian and master of science in nutrition, applied physiology, and all around wonderful source of info. She's experienced nutritional and health consultant in the New York metro area and beyond at this point, and she'll help guide you on a path to wellness and health.
And a good person.
And a good person. So let's get started here. Lightness of being, health, steadiness, improvement in the complexion of the body, perfection in the voice, sweetness of the body odor, slight excretions are said to be the first results of the progress of yoga. Yoga shows us that temporality of everything. We watch as our bodies change and we see the steady transformation over the years as we get stronger, as we get older. We learn to accept that nothing is permanent, that each practice will be different. We learn to let go of preconceived ideas of what we can or cannot do. We welcome every possibility. The person who conducts a yoga session is called a yogi. There are some famous yogis that have enlightened us over the years. I'm going to go to a little levity here. I'm going to quote some yogis, and I would like to ask Malcolm, Courtney, and Marissa to identify who said the quote. A, an actual yogi, practicing or poet. B, the beloved Yogi Berra, famous New York Yankee. And C, Yogi Bear, the infamous cartoon bear who resides in Jellystone Park. You have 5 seconds to answer in this lightning round. Here is the first quote. When you come to a fork in the road, take it.
Yogi Berra.
Yogi Bear.
Who said what? Yogi Berra? Whoever got Berra is right. Ding, 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 ding.
Yeah, I forgot to bring the button along.
Oh, you should have. We need the button. The yoga pose you avoid the most, you need the most.
That has to be a real yogi.
A yogi, definitely.
Okay. Okay.
I say that myself a lot.
Oh, all right. See, we got that one right. You can observe a lot by just watching.
Yogi Berra.
A yogi.
Do you know you're a ringer? Be quiet. No. Yogi Berra is correct.
Wow, he's wise.
He's a wise guy.
Okay, I'll step out of this because
no, it's okay. I don't think we do get smarter as we get older. I just think we run out of stupid things to do.
I think I said that.
I gotta go with Yogi Bear. There have to be some props to Yellowstone Park.
Yes, Jellystone. Yes, it's Yogi Bear. It's absolutely Yogi Bear. I think we have a minute to spare. I think I'm going to go through another. Yoga is the dance of every cell with music of every breath that creates inner serenity and harmony.
I think Marissa said that.
I love that. I wish that was mine, but yeah, that's a yogi for sure.
In theory, there is no difference between theory and practice. In practice, there is.
That sounds like a yogi.
Does sound like a yogi.
Berra.
Could be. I was gonna say that sounds like it could be related to sport activity for sure.
That's Yogi Berra. That's Yogi Berra. He's a yogi. And lastly, he's two things. I'll just say these for time purpose. If the world was perfect, it wouldn't be. That's Yogi Berra.
All
We
right.
wouldn't know that it was, right? If it was perfect, we wouldn't know it was
But
perfect.
that's Yogi
I
Berra.
know, see?
And this is a giveaway. Change only happens in the present moment. The past is already done. The future is just energy and intention.
Wow.
That's
Okay.
Keno McGregor. And this comes from Seattle Yoga News.
All right.
So
Actually, I think Yogi Berra is a Yoda.
I think you're right.
And he looks like one, or he looks
So-
like one.
So as you
So
can
why don't I
tell,
introduce our wonderful guest.
Go for it.
We'll get right to it. Marissa, thank you so much for joining us. I'm thrilled to have you here. So thank you for taking the time.
Oh my gosh, my pleasure. Thank you so much. Like I said, I'm so honored to be here. I'm very excited to be here today. Anytime I can talk about yoga.
Well, with your permission, I'm going to give your praise to you. So Marissa's been teaching yoga and bar for over 10 years now. She has a 500-hour both in Iyengar. Am I saying that correctly?
Yeah,
And
Iyengar.
Ashtanga trained certified teacher under Yoga Works lineage. She's a certified holistic health coach. And I love everything about your bio. I love this. We'll have to have you back on again to talk about this chocolate, sort of side hustle you have going on before teaching.
My many lives.
Yeah, she co-owned an organic dark chocolate company, which sold nationally at places like Whole Foods, Bed Bath & Beyond, Target, and a variety of other chain stores throughout the country. So we will have to have you back to hear about that. But today we're going to be completely focused on yoga.
Marissa, just an addendum to that, I have a show called Eat Something Sexy, which I just started, which basically is, she's a chef who studied aphrodisiacs at the Cordon Bleu. Dark chocolate is one of them.
Nice. Oh, yes, it is. Yeah, it gets all the serotonin going. It's awesome.
Yeah. And just not even eating it, just the concept of it.
Yeah.
Sort of gets you passionate.
For sure.
Yeah.
So, Marissa, one thing I've noticed in both personally and then among my client base is how over the years, people have found yoga practice to be an incredible complement to whatever type of exercise base they're already doing. So whether that be a college athlete, golf player, somebody who's more of a type A, run and gun it all the time and not necessarily balancing that with anything that's more for flexibility or for stretching. And then of course, the whole mind-body connection that yoga presents. So I would love to hear your thoughts on, first of all, the research behind what yoga can do for overall health, mind and body, like the benefits that have been well studied. If you could maybe start with that, and what you can share with us would be great.
Sure. Yeah. I like, that you said that it's a complement to what people are already doing. And I think that that's important too, is to always have a well-balanced exercise regimen. I don't know if like yoga alone is always the best thing. You can overdo anything, right? Even though yoga is great. So I think as far as the research is out there, the most consistent information is, and also just my own personal experience, is that yoga improves your quality of life, right? And so it's really something that is a holistic approach to fitness. If you're thinking of going into it for fitness, it also helps with trauma, which is, becoming a little bit more well-known and a little bit more of a popular practice of yoga, which is trauma-informed and trauma-based, almost yoga therapy, but it's being done by yoga teachers who have this extra credential to work with people that have experienced trauma either in childhood or into adulthood. So it can help with CPTSD and PTSD. It reduces stress overall and anxiety, which can lower your risk for disease. So it's kind of what you put into it. I don't know if you get on the mat and you only do it here and there, if it's going to be life transforming for you immediately. But the research shows that if you're doing it consistently and you're actually really putting a lot into it, meaning that you're concentrating and you're focusing on your practice and that mindfulness during the practice, that these things are what's happening for people. Most of us wandering around, and even as students come into a yoga class, their sympathetic nervous system is really activated. So that's releasing the stress hormones like adrenaline and cortisol. And And that creates this fight or flight response. And it's subconscious. People don't even know that they're doing it. And they have a very shallow breathing. And what yoga does is it teaches you, yes, it teaches you on the mat to practice and teaches you these challenging and fun poses. But beyond that, it's a training of the mind, and the mind is like a muscle, and it's teaching you to actually become aware of what's going on in your body. How's your breathing? Where is it? Then you can take that out into the world. You can take it off of your mat where it's safe and cozy in your yoga room to actually going out into traffic or into the streets or driving or whatever it is you're doing, and being able to take what you've learned. By practicing the 8 limbs of yoga, which is beyond just the asana practice, you can switch over to the parasympathetic nervous system. And that's what the research is really talking about when they say it's a stress reduction. It's the training of your mind to move out of that fight or flight response into a little bit more of a calming, relaxing recovery mode, right? And through that, your heart slows down, the mind slows down, the breathing slows down, the heart slows down, and your blood pressure can lower.
Wonderful. I have not heard about the trauma. That's really fascinating about it being used with trauma patients. That's really, for so many reasons, because I think they need more options. So that's incredible. And for many people, and that's probably leads into my next question, would there be any population of people from a medical perspective? I'll tap your expertise for age in a second, but are there any medical medical diseases, conditions, comorbidities that would preclude somebody from practicing yoga?
No, I would say no. I'm not a medical doctor, but from my experience as a teacher, I've taught young children, and I have young children myself, and, they're on the mat with me as soon as they can walk. Even when they're crawling, they're on the mat, they can do down dog, and, they do planks, and they can do happy baby, and they can do a lot of these things, and they really love it when they see it. They like to copy it. And, I teach a senior chair yoga. So I have people, so I've had children as young as 1, sometimes even under 1. And I've had students that are 85 plus. And it's all about really finding the right class, the right teacher, the right props. So like my senior yoga, when I'm working with seniors or people that have injuries, you use a lot of the props. Like the seniors use the chair. So we're always holding onto the chair, or we're not always sitting in the chair, but we're using it in and out of our poses.
And what about blocks and straps for people who are familiar with yoga? They know those. So you'll utilize them. And are those designed to really help with those individuals who might not have as much flexibility? Is that the role of those?
Yeah, it's interesting because I feel like sometimes the ego gets brought to the forefront when you're in a yoga class, in particularly some yoga classes, which can make it seem a little bit intimidating. And some teachers don't feel comfortable with props, so they don't work with them with students. Okay. I'm huge into props. I use them even myself when I'm practicing. And it's not that I can't go deeper into the poses. I can. I just don't want to, because you lose something. So it's like, you always have to ask yourself when you're practicing yoga, what am I gaining and what am I losing? Yeah, I could get my hand closer to the floor in a triangle pose, but then I'm collapsing my chest, which is restricting my breathing. Let me put a block down and lift the floor up a little bit so that I can really open up my chest. I can open up and make space for my lungs, and it just feels so much better. So yeah, I use props always. And I always tell people, even if you're an experienced yogi and you've been practicing for 20 years, get a block.
I love your comment about something has to give, right? So even if you're experienced, that like your example of you to get, could you get all the way down in that position, triangle pose? Yeah, probably, but something is probably being sacrificed. I love that, because I think we see that in so many different types of activities. And it sounds like it exists, in yoga as well. So, Malcolm, you have a question?
Yeah. The question is, Marissa, what I find out, and I start yoga, but I'm very inflexible. I train, I run, I do weight training, but I'm
Yeah.
not flexible. When I start yoga, the problem is I get intimidated because I am so non-flexible and I can't get into the positions, and I sort of do it for a week or two and then just sort of give
Yeah.
up because it's, this is not for me. Well, how do you
It's okay.
overcome it?
Yeah. Yeah, and it hurts me when I hear this, and I hear this a lot. I hear this from people just, when I'm out socializing, I hear it from people, oh, I tried yoga once, or I'm afraid to try yoga. And it's all about, everything is about finding the right teacher. You have to find someone who speaks to you. You have to find the right level class. So there's a lot of, they're handing out yoga teacher certifications like candy nowadays, right? That's how a lot of yoga studios make their money. That's their biggest profit, is doing teacher trainings and giving teachers certificates, which is wonderful on one hand, because why not share the love of yoga and get more teachers out into the world?
Yeah.
But the downfall is then we have a lot of inexperienced teachers that really probably don't have they're not ready yet to really be taking on like a class of mixed level people. And that's how people get injured. So what you're speaking about is you really need to go to a studio and talk to the studio owner, or talk to someone at the desk and just say, hey, I'm new to yoga. I need an intro to yoga, a very basic, where they can really just walk me through it. And then you stick with that for like 3 to 6 months. If you're doing it at least once a week, 2-3 times a week, and really stick with it. And that way you're not into a class that is frustrating for you and just feels like it's not right for you. And just because it's an intro, and I'll say this, a lot of teachers, we laugh amongst ourselves and we say a beginning yoga class is way harder than a level 3, the advanced classes. Why? Because they hold the poses and break them down for you. It's tough. It's not easy, but it trains you to do the poses correctly with the correct alignment, and it prepares your body for the next level. So it's all about finding the right studio, the teacher that speaks to you, that you like, and you'll know when you know, you'll know, because you'll be like, I like that teacher.
Yeah, well,
I'm going to
it's
come back
fun-
to that class.
It's funny, you mentioned that, make sure you have the right position.
Yeah.
And the thing I find frustrating, especially with, I only can afford, let's say, to go to a class. And I've gone to classes, but I go to a class, there are 20, 30 people there. And you have one instructor. And I know that I'm not doing the pose right, but I don't have the instructor to come to say, oh, excuse me, Malcolm, this is not the way, put the shoulder down or put the.
That's right.
Is that too big of a class size, Marissa? Would that be considered just too large?
No, not necessarily. I think it's all depends on the level of experience of a teacher. And here's why. I love adjustments. I do adjustments, a lot of them. And that's the benefit of a 500. I'm going to go off on a tangent, but it'll bring us back to answer your question. That's why 500 hour, there's different levels of, teachers. There's 200 hour trained, which to me isn't enough. 500 hour teachers, it's good, but there's even more. There's 800, there's 1,000. I mean, it keeps going, right? And so what you want is a yoga teacher who has assisted a master level teacher, like a teacher's teacher, for at least a year. And that person every week goes into a class, and all they do the whole time is adjust students. So what you want to do is, if you go into a class that has that many students, they really should have an assistant. That teacher should have a teacher trainer in the class to do exactly that, to go around and help people get the proper alignment. That said, I also think it's possible for a really good, clear anatomy, someone who's comfortable with anatomy can verbalize and do it slowly enough to get you into a position and get you into a pose where your alignment is spot on, because they're just very articulate and they know what they're doing and they know what they're saying.
So then what do you think about online? Like, so obviously with all of COVID, I mean, so many of these classes moved to virtual, which I think in one way was fantastic because it allowed an opportunity for people to continue to exercise.
Yeah.
But what going forward, how does somebody taking either an online or a streamed yoga class, what are their best options in order to make sure they're getting into that right position?
Yeah.
What should they look for?
Well, I think asking questions is good. Online, when you're a beginner yogi, is probably a little bit more challenging. because you don't really get that same one-on-one attention. It's not that it can't be done. I think it can be done as long as your teacher doesn't have a really big class. So I think finding an experienced teacher and asking questions like, how many hours, what is your certification? And you really want to find someone with 500 hours or more.
Okay.
I don't want to say, the 200-hour teachers can't do it. Some have been practicing since they were kids and they really know what they're doing. I would say just as a whole, you want to find somebody who's at least 500 hours or more. And then make sure that they're comfortable with using the props and that they have you set up with the right props, and that you'll know when you go to take the class, if you're feeling frustrated and you're feeling like you don't know what you're doing and no one's guiding you, then that's probably an indication that you need to find a different class.
Right.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead,
I have a
Marissa.
question. There's something called regenerative yoga, which is supposed to help. I took some regenerative yoga. Now I'm having a problem with my knee and my arm. So now I'm afraid to even try to restart it, because now I'm wondering how I can even go into certain positions and poses. And what if you have an injury that's kind of chronic, what do you do if you want to take yoga?
I have injuries. I have chronic injuries. Yoga, as wonderful as it is, it actually can cause a lot of injuries too. So it's not all, it's not all wonderful and beautiful. So I think it's about listening to your body. So if you have injuries, you should still practice. You just need to listen to your body. And that's where the ego sometimes comes into these classes. And that's why it's important for a teacher to be able to speak to the students on a level that is individual. If you have an injury, you should be able to go to the teacher actually should initiate it and say, is anyone working with any injuries today? That's what I usually ask. And then I go over to each student and I ask, what is your injury? And if you say, I can't move my knee this way, or I had a surgery, or I have a lot of shoulder issues or hip issues, and then I can talk to them for a few moments about what they should probably back off, where they should back off, what they should avoid, and give them modifications. Keep your knees, under a blanket. Don't go as deep into the poses. Use your props. Use your blocks on the tallest setting. And if we need to, we bring a chair in and you use the chair because it lifts the floor way up. So there is therapeutic yoga as well, right? Restorative therapeutic, which you're speaking about, which is also wonderful. And if your injuries if you're injured so much that even doing any basic yoga is painful, then it might be good to do the restorative for a while until you heal, but I think again, you can still do yoga with all kinds of injuries. You just need to really be present in listening to your body and make sure that your teacher's aware of what's going on with you.
Yeah, Marissa, I don't have injuries, but I know as I got older, I have arthritis, or my shoulders hurt, and I go to the doctor, and he says, "You're not getting any younger. Anything I can do about it, take cortisone," and I don't take it, but I still work. Is there any yoga type of positions or things that they work with the people who have arthritis?
Yeah, definitely. I think, yoga, like anything, can be hard on some of the joints. So again, that goes back to taking a class that is at your level at that time for where you are that day. So if your arthritis is acting up, then you probably want to start with something that's not very intense. You want to avoid probably the level 2 and 3 classes, and avoid the power yogas, and do things that are still working and moving your body, but it's not as intense. There's always ways to modify where you can still do a full yoga class and just use the modifications.
Wow.
So would you, because I do have clients who are using a lot of these streamed yoga classes right now. And I think for the most part, they're, I would say they're not beginners, but would your advice be to somebody who's truly brand new to yoga, that might not be the best way to start it because of the inability to, remember, these are the streams, so they can't ask the teacher anything, and nor can they present any of their issues. So is that maybe best reserved for people who are not necessarily beginners?
It's really hard for me to say. I mean, I've done virtual yoga over this past year with people who are newer to yoga, not complete beginners. I think that would be a little bit tough, but definitely and I just keep an eye on them, but it is a little bit, it slows the class down because I'm not able to just, I can, if I'm in the room with you, I can go over to you and move your body the way I want it, the way that I know it needs to be aligned. I can physically
Right.
move you, which is, it takes 2 seconds. I can talk and I can continue teaching while I fix you. If you're doing a virtual class, it's harder because the teacher has to stop the class and, say, move your foot over a little bit more towards the wall, or, you need to move your knee back a little bit. It's too far, forward over your toe, or, engage the belly more. So you're really having to stop everything to get people more into alignment. And so that might be something that teachers avoid so that they keep the flow of the class going.
Okay.
So in that sense it could, but again, it all goes back to just how you feel. If you're new to yoga and you're taking an online class and it's working for you and you're not feeling pain afterwards or even during the class, then it's probably okay. I think it just goes back to really listening to how you feel. And if you're kind of starting to ache a little bit after a yoga class, then you might want to rethink and take it from a different teacher or a different style, or maybe go into a studio.
I'm going. I have 2 quick
Go.
questions. 2 things to say. Goat yoga and hot yoga. What are your thoughts?
What was the first one?
Goat yoga.
Goat? I've never heard of goat yoga. What's that?
You never heard of goat yoga? The goats come
No.
into the class and they step on you, and it's like, I got to send you stuff on it. It's like,
Oh my goodness.
it's a thing. It's a real thing.
No, I've heard of it.
Women started, yes, goat yoga. You can Google it. I promise it will come up. And what about this hot yoga where it gets so intense that you can't even yeah. What's the deal with hot yoga?
I don't want to judge though. I think everybody has their own thing, right? Some people just do the therapeutic. They're like, this is what I love. This is what I want to do. Some people really need the intensity. Those are probably people who are pretty intense. And that's sort of one of the quotes that you said when we started off, right? Is you actually should probably do the things that you avoid. So if you only like the intense stuff and you avoid the little bit softer, a little bit backing off a little bit type of yoga, then that's probably the one you should be doing, right? Because it's probably opposite of who you naturally are. Yoga that's hot is too intense for me. I don't like practicing that way, but I know a lot of people who really need it. They need to sweat the demons out. They need that intensity to make themselves feel like they got a release. So if that's what someone needs, then by all means they should do it. I think you just need to be careful, that you don't get injuries, because the hot yoga.
Marissa?
What's that?
Is it a different certification? The hot yoga, to be a hot yoga instructor. There we go. Okay.
It's all, yeah, it is a little bit different. I think that some yoga studios teach their teachers a basic sequence that is taught to every single class. So it's a little bit more kind of like a cookie cutter mold. And I think some power yoga studios are the same way, where the sequencing is pretty standard. So that when you go into that class, that you're going to get your basic set of sequence, poses that are going to one thing to another. Yeah. The kind of yoga that I teach is a little bit different. And I generally teach from whatever my personal experience is for that week or that month, or, if I go into a class and I can feel the students kind of vibe, I can change it up a little bit. I can tell when people are a little bit aggro and they need to really work hard, and when people are feeling just like kind of tired and out of it. So, it is different. It is the training and those teachers are a little bit different than like an Ashtanga or an Iyengar teacher. Yeah.
When you're talking about hot yoga,
See?
is that where the temperature is high? Because I know they have it where they have like a sweat, like a sauna almost. Doing yoga.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, okay. I'm not talking about just that's what I'm
talking about. The instructor, right? Hey,
yeah.
I don't know. Quickly, how does chanting and music affect the mood, and also how does that, in terms of yoga, how does that all fit together?
Well, again, it's such a personal preference. There's so many nuances in yoga, and there's so many different types of yoga, and even within that type, there's so many different types of teachers with different personalities, and some people really need that spiritual element. I know I do. I started practicing yoga, 25 years ago in Venice Beach, at Exhale in Venice Beach, and I was taking from some of those most woo-woo yoga teachers ever, right? Shiva Ray, and I loved it, and I really needed it. I came to yoga really needing something to change in my life. I didn't go to get fit. I came to have a church experience, and that's why I went. So the chanting and the singing, and even if I could get to a kirtan class, which is just like music and dancing and free movement, I like that. I feel that's where I get the biggest connection to myself. The inner me can come out, so to speak. But I know that sometimes that freaks some people out. Sometimes that woo-woo stuff is
Hey guys,
no,
I
just want to chaturanga.
I hate to interrupt you, but our time is up. Just one thing, when you mentioned in Venice, I live in California now, and you're thinking of chanting and being in Venice Beach, I'm thinking of the Hare Krishnas. As they're going around, I can picture you with one here going Hare Krishna. Yeah. But anyway, is there any way
I'm telling you, I love it. I love that.
Is there any way
you got to jump to Marissa? Where can we find you on social media? I mean, tell anybody who's listening where.
As a true yogi, I'm not really a social media kind of a person. I'm terrible. I'm terrible with it. It's kind of ironic because I am a yoga teacher and I love to teach the public, but I'm very private and I don't do a lot of social media. I teach locally here. I'm starting to teach an outdoor vinyasa class outside here, but I'm happy to share, my email or, I am on social media, but it's Dorana Mama. But again, I'm not on Instagram very often, but you can find me there on Instagram.
That's fine. Yeah, I tell you what I will post whatever you think you're comfortable if it's your email, so people can reach out to you directly to find out if the class is something that they can do. And then if it's okay with you, I'll go ahead and post that info on the Courtney on Health Facebook page so people can find you if they want to.
Sure. Yeah.
So you can take a gong bath. That's an interesting one too. So
anyway, guys.
Yes, those are incredible.
Yeah.
We do the long goodbyes, but we have to cut it out.
All right, I'm doing it. I should do the outro then.
What was it? Thank you, Marissa. It was marvelous
Thank you
having
so
you
much.
on.
Okay. Take
Courtney,
care,
as usual.
everyone.
Max, do
Yeah.
your
Thank you
outro.
so much, Marissa.
I'm just going to do a quick outro, okay? All right. So thanks for joining us for Courtney on Health. To get more info, follow Courtney on her Facebook page, Courtney on Health on Instagram at CLG Wellness, and visit her website, CourtneyGravenese.com. For more shows, go to MalcolmPresents.com and theManyShadesOfGreen.com. It's Courtney on Health, Smart Sound Nutrition, Strong Safe Fitness, and we'll catch you next time.
See you next week.
Marissa, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.